Welcome. This is a another episode of Alumni Journeys for Cerritos College. I am your host today. My name is Parimul Rohit, talking to you from Austin, Texas. Welcome to everybody today. We are recording this another episode of Alumni Journeys for Cerritos College. I am your host today. My name is live stream right now. So for those of you who are here, just be aware that we are live streaming and we are also recording. Today's episode of Alumni Journeys is featuring Seth Contreras. We'll be talking to him today about his time at Cerritos College and his journey from a two-year program to being a city planner. And there's a lot that he kind of meandered along the way. He's also a dancer, so we'll talk about his dancing at some point in this conversation. We also have a few questions that are coming from the audience, so I'll pose those as well. But without further ado, on behalf of Cerritos College Foundation, let's all welcome Seth Contreras. Welcome.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Parmal. Really happy to be here, and special thanks as well to Matthew for setting this all up. This looks so easy when you just get to click a button and sit back and join a meeting or call, but a lot goes on in the background. So thank you for Matthew for organizing this, coordinating it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah. And Seth, I'm not done introducing you yet. I still got to go through a little bit of who you are. Let's introduce you.
Okay.
Talk about your resume and kind of give a little background on where you've been. You started at Cerritos College back in '03. You were here for 2 years. You were voted Mr. Cerritos '05. So we will definitely want to talk about that for a couple of minutes when you get a chance. From Cerritos, you went on to Cal Poly Pomona, where you got a bachelor's in civil engineering. And from there, you didn't stop. You went to a couple of UC schools. You went up to Berkeley for a year to get your master's in transportation engineering. And from there, you came back down to Southern California, attended UC Irvine, where you got your PhD in civil engineering, and it came with an urban planning focus. You also spent some time as a hockey referee. You were a traffic engineering intern. You worked with the NRDC, which is the Natural Resource Defense Council. You also worked as a freight analyst at the Port of Long Beach. You were a professional dancer with the Ballet Folclórico de Mexico.
You got it.
Also spent time you went to Florida as an urban planner with the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency. Came back out west to be a senior transportation analyst with the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Fast forward to now, you're back here in Southern California as a transportation planner at Fair and Piers. So that's kind of a quick summary of what you've done, but I kind of want to start now with who you are and who is Seth. So let's go back to '03. You finished high school in Bellflower, and you're on your summer after high school before college. What is on Seth's mind? What were you thinking of doing? Was it about, did you know what you're going to do as a career? Did you just want to have fun and figure college out? Where were you at in '03?
Yeah, thanks, Parmal. Well, I knew in '03, I definitely wanted both of those things. Knew what I wanted to do, but also have some fun. So I did grow up and was born in Bellflower, went a little bit of time to high school in Bellflower, but I actually graduated from a high school in Long Beach. And in terms of where I wanted to start at a community college, I just knew right away graduating, I wanted to go to Cerritos Community College for two reasons. Number one, my mom attended there. So I would be a second generation attending Cerritos College, and she had great things to say about it, her time there. And which is great to know because she went back when she was in her 40s, had us three little kids. So she was a working mom, working student. Knowing that she still had a good experience at Cerritos College told me that it was a good program. But also, too, just wanted to venture out and try something different. I felt like Long Beach City College would have just been a high school part two for me. And I noticed right away once I landed at Cerritos College, just the atmosphere, but also the diversity, the big change and the diversity that I noticed. I just knew I was in the right place.
Okay, so let's talk about the Cerritos experience. You arrive on campus, you kind of feel like you're in a collegiate setting. Where did you start to kind of figure out the starting point of your journey? Did you speak with an advisor? Did you just enroll in a few classes? How did you kind of get the ball rolling in terms of what you wanted to do? Where was the starting point once you were on campus?
Yeah, I mean, the starting point, I think each one of us at some point we meet a few mentors or professionals that kind of give us that initial advice on which direction to take, which path, or it could be our parents, it could be someone you meet randomly at a gym. And that was the case for me in high school, that on the weekdays at lunchtime, I would go to my nearby 24-hour fitness gym, and there were these group of aerospace engineers from Boeing. At the time, Boeing was still in Long Beach, and they came every day to work out. And there, I remember there was this big guy. His name was Akim. He was from Austria. He had a big Arnold Schwarzenegger accent, and they saw me working out every day by myself there, and they asked me if I wanted to join them, and I said yeah. And they were aerospace engineers, so I got to meet with them and talk to them. Told them I was graduating, and they gave me the advice that, hey Seth, you should go into engineering. There's going to be a lot of good career opportunities. And so I think yeah, that initial mindset, I was thinking about what would be a good career path in terms of just opportunities once I graduate in 4 years, thinking in the long run, 4 years, not necessarily right now, knowing that I still had some time to go to graduate. And they were also just a great group of guys. I connected with them, related to them. Uh, and so I just knew, okay, I could see myself as an engineer, just didn't know what type of engineer. And they were aerospace engineers. You would think that they would recommend you, hey, you should go into aerospace engineering, but they had the foresight to say, look, Seth, probably don't want to go into aerospace engineering. Boeing's going to be leaving Long Beach. There's not going to be a whole lot of job opportunities. We recommend you go into civil engineering. And so it was really because of those engineers that I met at the 24-hour fitness gym that I knew I wanted to study civil engineering. And then I started looking at just different programs. Cal Poly Pomona really stood out to me. And so I initially checked at Cal Poly Pomona, what were the requirements to be able to transfer there. And I saw that Cerritos College had all of the right credits and programs to be able to transfer with all the necessary credits within the 2 years. And so that just set me on my path and my roadmap to which classes to take, which courses to be able to get that AA and then transfer to Cal Poly.
Sure. So you came in with a bit of a clean slate. You're given some great advice, and now it's time to, anybody could come up with a plan, but now it's time to execute. So you're now planning out your classes. Was there a class, a couple of classes, a few classes that stood out for you? What along the way in your 2 years of Cerritos kind of confirmed, like, yeah, it's one thing to get the advice, but now I know I'm on the right track. What was kind of your moments of affirmation?
Hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, I took all of the chemistry courses, all the math courses, and physics. But then, I mean, once I saw that uh, in civil engineering, it's more than just the math and the science, that there's a human aspect to it. That's what triggered me or told me that I was on the right course, because that's the nice thing about starting at a Cerritos college, is that, or community college, you can change directions within your first semester, first year, second year. There's flexibility there, which is great. And but I knew once I took, there was this one course about the history of Mesoamerica. I know it sounds kind of random, but it was this course I took on a late Monday night, 3 hours course. But this professor had this amazing slideshow of just all of the artwork and all of the history of Mesoamerica, all of the pyramids that they constructed, all of the infrastructure, aqueducts, and I just knew that, okay, like this ancestry. I mean, I'm part Hispanic, and my ancestries, they were kind of the very first engineers and mathematicians, and we could still see these structures to this day. That I just knew that, yeah, I wanted to be a civil engineer. And yeah, I could still remember that slideshow. It was just amazing, and seeing all the just different pyramids. And I've visited some of these pyramids in real life.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The engineering of hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, when they didn't have the technological advances we have today, but to see it pulled off, it's enough to get anybody intrigued and curious about pursuing that as a career. And so, I mean, even myself, when I travel, I mean, I've been to India and I've seen the Taj Mahal built, a few hundred years ago. It's an engineering marvel to see that thing pull it off. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally understand what you're getting at. Just to see these slides at the get go, and then to eventually see them in real life, it's phenomenal. So, I guess kind of take us then from that point into now Cal Poly Pomona, then your master's and your doctorate. How are you then starting imagining kind of where you want to be at? I mean, now you're starting to maybe go into a specific kind of engineering, be it civil or what have you. what were you kind of envisioning you doing? What was your fantasy or your vision of your day-to-day life? What would you be doing as this career? Are you thinking that in your head?
Yeah, I was, and just to like end the loop on that story I mentioned about the Mesoamerica, what was also telling, a lesson learned there that really stood out to me is that learning how a lot of these civilizations in the past, how they, in some ways, went extinct because mainly because of climate change, whether it was drought, change in their environment, how they had to relocate, and some of these civilizations did not survive. It was really telling to me that look, we can learn a lot from those civilizations in the past. And
Mhm.
so that really also then steered me towards a path in sustainability and thinking of infrastructure and the way we grow in terms of just our environment and preserving that. Um, when I got to Cal Poly Pomona, one of the best things that happened was starting an internship with the city of Santa Ana. And so any recommendation I could give to someone who's maybe just starting out at Cerritos College, uh, you know, try to take as many internships as you can because that's the way you're going to find out whether or not that's a career you really want to participate in and join. And once I got to Cal Poly Pomona, I started an internship at the city of Santa Ana, their public works department. And I remember my very first day, I walked in, it was the traffic engineering department. And I walked in and they had this cubicle of all of these screens, all of these monitors, and they were live feeds from a lot of the major intersections throughout the city. And you could just see intersection by intersection, all of the cars moving. And right from there, they were able to adjust signal timing if they wanted to in real time. And, and in that minute, I was just, yeah, hooked that I knew that that was something I wanted to do, helping people move, knowing that traffic is something no one wants to, um, be in. No one likes being stuck in traffic, and so if there's a way I can help be a solution to that from a sustainable perspective, that was what I wanted to do.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question a lot earlier than I thought I would because you just bring it up that monitor situation made me think of like something you and I talked about a couple of days ago when we we're prepping for this about how your experience as a dancer is actually connected to your ability to pull off your job as a city planner and as an engineer. And I'm thinking about, look at these monitors and you gotta like you're managing movement and there's an art to it. It's not just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
just press a button. There's an art to it. So I kind of want to explore with you real quick. Just first tell us about your dancing experience and being as part of the Ballet Folklorico and how you use some of the elements from your dancing life in your career as an engineer.
Yeah, thanks, Parmo. Sure. Um, so I think, yeah, everyone, from what I've seen, everyone has that hobby. Everyone has that outlet, that just something that they can go to when, if they're just maybe not having a good day or they're just stressed out from too much homework, they want to do something that's relaxing and they can take their mind off. And whether that's cooking, exercising, taking a bike ride, yeah, playing an instrument. But for me, it was just dancing. That I started dancing at a really young age, got exposed to it at a really young age as well. That growing up in Bellflower, which is pretty predominantly Hispanic, that the elementary school I went to around Cinco de Mayo, they had um, a an assembly where they brought in a Mexican folklorico dance company to perform for us. And I just remember telling my mom, like, yeah, I want to do that. And being the great mom that she was, I mean, all moms are superheroes, but this one, she really supported me and got me involved in it. But seeing um, just the costumes, hearing the music, watching the footwork and the movement, I was just hooked and wanted to do it. And I've been dancing ever since. And I always just found it to be a really good outlet and balance between all of the scientific and using my left side of the brain. But we also have a right side of the brain that is all about creativity, and it was just a really good outlet for me from all of my studies from Cal Poly Pomona, master's degree, PhD, to have that really important to have that outlet to maintain a balance so that I find that it helps complement both my professional life and then my personal life as well, that bringing in that artistic side. And it's
Nice,
just fun too. I mean, you've got to play along the way, have some fun, whatever is playing a sport, something to keep moving.
nice. Any experiences from your dancing life that you like to share with us? Any personal stories that were, just memorable that stands out for you?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I mean, a couple. One, I mean, let me share my screen. I'll show you some photos from. Yeah, you mentioned 2005, the Mr. Cerritos, and so yeah, in 2005, um, there was at the time they were still doing the hoedown days. It was like a full week of events at Cerritos Community College, and they had what was called a Mr. Ram or Mr. Cerritos pageant. And yeah, I just entered into this. I got sponsored by the International Club, and the what I ended up doing was for my talent, I performed a traditional Mexican folklorico dance. So what you see right here, this picture, that's me in a charro suit, is what they call that. It's a traditional charro suit, the Mexican cowboy from the state of Jalisco in Mexico. You see a lot of musicians who play in mariachi bands. They'll wear this costume, but we also perform and dance in it as well. So that's all silver chain you see along the leg, and the costume. It kind of almost looks like a matador suit as well, be just from the Spanish influence when the Spanish were in Mexico. And yeah, in 2005, just got to be able to go out and perform right there in on Cerritos College. The crowd loved it. Had a lot of fun and got to yeah, ended up winning that competition. But the point was to be able to just get out there and show some dancing. And then fast forwarding, let me show you some photos here. This is from 2014. I ended up um, right as I was finishing up my PhD. I was 29, getting ready to turn 30, and I told myself, okay, I got to do something fun or exciting before I reach that level 3. Turning 30. I think everyone does something, and for me, it was literally just dropping everything for one summer and moving down to Mexico City and auditioning for Ballet Folclórico de Mexico in Mexico City. And I made it in within a couple of weeks. And then within a month, I was already performing with them. That's me right here on this side. And yeah, I'll go through, show you some photos. But these are all photos from a performance I did at the Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City, and I got to perform with them for three. Actually, no, I was there for 6 months. I ended up staying another 6 months. But I'll tell you as well, while I was there, I was also interning, doing an internship. So I always maintained that balance. That even though I was performing professionally, I still had a daytime job, which a lot of these dancers did. They all had daytime jobs. You can't really make a living off of being a professional dancer, which is why I always kept civil engineering as my priority, knowing that yeah, I'd like to be able to support and um, live a productive life and do more than just dancing. But yeah, these are some photos just from some traditional dances from Mexico that I got to perform in. Um, so yeah,
Wow.
thanks for letting me share these photos with you.
Yeah, these are amazing. These are really good. So thank you for sharing that. What an
Yeah.
experience it's been. I'm actually kind of curious now. Spending the amount of time you did, kind of shifting back to your full-time job. I mean, spending time in Mexico City. Were there any lessons you learned professionally about, city planning and engineering from down there, and have you been able to apply that to your work now?
Yeah, definitely. Um, so my field, I work in transportation planning, and so it's one of those professions where not many people know about it, but it is a real profession. You can get a master's degree, bachelor's degree in transportation planning. It kind of goes in line with urban planning, but transportation is a transportation focus. And to give you some examples, I mean, each of us every day interact with transportation systems, whether it's getting in our car and driving on the roads, passing through an intersection, hopping on a train, hopping on the metro, bus, subway, taking a flight somewhere, taking the Amtrak upstate, or delivering something online and Amazon delivering it to you, Instacart. So we're surrounded by transportation all around us, and it's really the fabric, the skeleton of what makes a city move and keeps things moving, people and goods. And there's planning involved in it because these systems, once they're in place, they're there for 50 years. So you want to make sure that you do it right. And so some projects I've been involved in recently, LAX, for example, a lot of the road treatments and improvements you see going on, and the expansion in LAX. I've been involved in that. LA Metro, the C line or Green Line expansion for the metro system down to Torrance, and even there's now talks of moving out to Norwalk, extending that line. And then just most recently, an Amazon last mile delivery warehouse facility that's going to be coming to Long Beach that I helped do some planning with. So I get to work on all large scale projects and even small neighborhood scale projects, city level traffic engineering. But it's an exciting profession, and it's just yeah, helping people move and goods move. And I take it more from a sustainability lens and trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because transportation, it's one of the highest polluting sectors right next to the power sector. And when we get in our cars, no one wants to pollute, on purpose. I think, no one genuinely wants to get in and pollute. It's just the way that our cities have been designed and planned. But we're trying to shift that now. We know LA is a car culture, so it's going to take some time. But having moved around too, and I chose transportation also because it's so multilingual. You can work in transportation anywhere in the world. You can work in Florida, Las Vegas, DC, China. Every country, every city has transportation systems. So if you're a transportation planner, you can work anywhere. And I took advantage of that, and why I worked in Mexico City for a while, because it's a profession. Everyone has transportation and needs help planning. And so that really, I took advantage of that and moved around a lot while I could, especially after school. That since I studied so many years in California, I wanted to get as much experience outside California as I could. And that's why you see just that running list of different out of state experience. And on average, I stayed about 1 year at each place. And, for some, like a resume like that may not look so great because you're not really committing yourself, but I did stay in the same profession. And also too, just usually after 1 year is when you're kind of your learning curve. You figure out if you want to stay there long term or not. But I looked at it as a benefit that I've been getting so much different experience, whether it was in Florida, Mexico, DC, and I could talk about my experience in DC as well in a little bit, and just the international experience I got to experience before COVID. We're working in DC.
Sure. Well, why don't we talk about that right now? Kind of share with us,
Yeah.
walk us through. I mean, I do have a follow up to that'll kind of dovetail from that, but let's talk about the international experience in DC. And DC is kind of interesting just as design. You got the loop, and you got the subway systems and everything there. So walk us through your DC experience and kind of how that enriched your career.
Yeah. So yeah, DC. I remember it was this was 2016, and so we were just on the cusp of the November election, and this international think tank in DC reached out and asked if I was interested in joining their organization. They work in developing countries, a lot in South America, Latin America, and I was living in Las Vegas at the time, just finishing up about 1 year, so I was a little bit closer to home. But I just knew in the long run, DC was just a little bit better fit for me than Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas was a lot of fun, and they were doing a lot of cool, exciting projects. When I was there, we put in a new bike share system in the downtown, old downtown area. And then there was getting discussions of building a subway or a tram between the airport and the strip to replace the monorail. But once that DC opportunity opened up, I jumped on it. And all this moving around too, I think I was fortunate enough as well, just in my private life, that I wasn't settled down yet in terms of either being married or having any children. I think it would have been a lot more of a challenge to do that if I did have kids. Not to say that I wouldn't have, but to take advantage of those opportunities before you really settle down to move around is what I recommend. But DC, yeah, I just remember arriving, and yeah, the elections in 2016 did not go as I had expected in 2016, but nonetheless, that it wasn't a condition on my accepting the job offer in DC. So it was an interesting time to be there, starting fresh 2017 when, the new administration came into play. Um, but because there was a lot of rollbacks, especially on the climate side from the Trump administration, we ended up seeing a lot more stepping up from private donors to help just continue the climate focus efforts. And so that helped in terms of my line of work. And then the company I worked for, we did a lot of work in Colombia. We did a lot of work in Brazil as well. And so it, it was at least, once a month I was traveling to these countries, at least once a month. Went to Colombia a few times, Brazil, Sao Paulo, and then even traveled to China as well. Did some road safety work there. Thailand did some projects there on sustainable mobility, and so um, yeah, being able to travel as much like that, uh, it was because I worked for an international think tank that paid for all of those trips and flights, and was plugged in at the international level. It was just a really good experience to be able to meet and work with all these different cultures. It really opens up your perspective.
Cool. So it's a perfect seg to our next question, which is actually a submitted question. And the question is, what do you think is the most challenging transportation issue that cities face today?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. The most challenging right now today. Um, I mean the normal answer would be traffic. That with the amount of cars on the road, and the amount of traffic that's a really big issue in terms of just trying to move people. What the biggest issue I saw during COVID was road safety. That was the biggest challenge for a lot of cities was road safety. We saw collisions spike during COVID-19. A lot of that had to do with just that traffic volumes were down, so more people were speeding. So during 2020, the biggest issue was road safety, and so that's a big issue right now. Um, but equity, I would say, is the biggest challenge that in providing a system that just gives access for anyone, no matter your race, your gender, your socioeconomic background, your status. That just being able to get access to school, to jobs, to shopping, to grocery markets. That the way we've designed these roads, that they're just so car oriented. It's a challenge if, like, let's say you can only depend on the bus or a bicycle. That it's a really big challenge for those groups that tend to be marginalized. And so I see a big shift happening right now on taking an equity lens, because if we only just focus on traffic, that's only just those who own the cars, and there are more travelers than those that just own cars. There are those that still rely on taking a bus, who may walk, who may bicycle, and they're the most vulnerable riders as well, in terms of road safety. So I think the biggest issue right now is just establishing an equitable system.
Got it. Okay. Next question is also kind of relevant to what you just answered. It's also an answer I'm going to pay close attention to because it's also relevant to me being in Austin right now because we're facing the similar kind of question here in Austin. And the question is, how do cities with a growing population keep transportation systems sustainable and environmentally friendly?
Yeah, I mean, population growth, it's happening, and that's why I got into transportation planning, so that we can try to plan these systems. The what what's happening is the mindset before was, okay, let's just add a lane to whatever roadway or highway that we see a lot of congestion. Let's add a road lane, but that's just no longer feasible anymore. That since so much is built out, and then that roadway, it ends up becoming filled with traffic again within 5 years, and so you just can't build your way out of congestion, as they say. And so um, a lot of trends that we saw happening during COVID was a lot more work from home patterns, that did bring down a little bit of traffic, but we're starting to see that now rise back up. Um, you know, if we want to see a big shift, we need to see, number one, investments in alternative viable options to give people more options to travel other than the car. That if you wanted to instead walk to a nearby metro station and hop on that, or ride your bicycle on a protected bike lane, or take a BRT, bus rapid transit, along the corridor that moves faster and past traffic, that to have those options available is really important to give people more options other than the car. Um, and then in addition to that, I mean, unfortunately, some tough decisions are going to have to be made as well. That if we want that shift in travel patterns, that really the private vehicle, it's just so heavily subsidized that in terms of parking and the actual real costs that we produce to drive a car on our roadways, we're not capturing all those costs. And so whether it's you know, mileage-based user fees or parking cost, so that you can then create those funds to invest in public transit. But I mean, we have so many good examples to look at too. I mean, when after World War II, the U.S. we invested and built highways. If you looked at Europe, they invested and built subways and transit systems, and then everything grew around that. And now we're kind of trying to restart history and now trying to build more transit instead. But yeah, I wish I had like a one line silver bullet answer for that. But yeah, as the population grows, I think also too, people are just going to reach a point where they just can't bear the traffic anymore. And either they're going to move out really far out and just commute 3 or 4 hours, or they're going to, switch and take transit or try to work more from home, or, you know, try to ride a bike if there's a protected bike lane. And so, yeah, it's just going to be a lot of travel behavior.
Yeah, when you're talking, by the way, we're talking about just adding a lane of traffic to kind of solve some of these problems. I always associate the film Field of Dreams with that because it's this theory of build it and they'll come, and that's kind of what we see happening, right? You build that lane, and the traffic just comes, and like you said, you'll have a short term solution, but and relief in traffic, but it's at 5 years down the line, that highway now needs another lane, and then another 5 years it needs another lane. You can only build so far out, and so yeah, I definitely I'm hopeful that not just with the work you do, but with planners in general, when they look at these projects and they look at different ways to kind of address traffic concerns and what have you. So, anyways, I just want to throw that in there. I know we're drifting from the main topic here, but wanted to mention that. So,
And I
one,
would just add too, because since you're in Austin, I know that, like, for example, Uber, they were there for a time and then left, and then now they're back. Um, you know, we were at a point, 10 years ago, before Uber and Lyft came onto the scene, that I did start to see a big shift towards transit. But then during the Great Recession, you had a lot of these unemployed individuals who still own cars, and so that's when Uber and Lyft came onto the scene for these for hire drivers. And the data has shown that the Uber and Lyft has increased traffic and congestion in these cities where they're at. And so it's going to just take some creativity, and it did not necessarily help. And I've worked with Uber for a while, and they're trying to help improve their systems to encourage more carpooling and Uber pool. It's more about just trying to get more people into fewer cars as possible. That it's not necessarily just going to be everyone's going to shift to transit. That we can get creative and get more people to share their car seats and carpool. The more cars you have, the less cars you have, the better.
yeah. And this has turned into a great transportation webinar. I'm definitely enjoying this for sure. So hopefully the audience too. But let's get back to. I want to kind of shift back now to Cerritos College. So I have another question that was submitted here. The question is, what is the one knowledge, skill, or ability you wish you learned in community college that would have been useful in your doctoral program?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Say that one more time.
A knowledge, skill, or ability you wish you learned in community college that would have been useful in your doctoral program.
Yeah, I would definitely say number one, looking back, was taking a computer science course. That, if you can, if there's just a basics intro computer science, learning a program, whether it's C++, Python, VB script, that I kind of had to self-learn that by the time I got to UC Berkeley for my master's. But had I been able to take, and I ended up taking a intro course at Cal Poly as well, but I felt like, man, if I could take one more course at Cerritos, it would have been some computer science course. And that can apply not just engineering, any field you go into, for STEM especially. That Yeah, having taken just a basic intro to computer science, it's like learning another language. Like we'll take a foreign language course, take a computer science course if you can. That's going to help you, just to get the foundations, to learn the alphabet, basically.
Sure. I have another question about transportation and then being in the Puerto Rico. The question is, how did you decide which one to pick, and was it possible to do both, like more than just a few months?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that question a lot. Like, Seth, why didn't you just, leave your internship or leave your full-time job and PhD and just go and dance, professionally? And Yeah, I could have taken that path, that route, but after 6 months, day in and day out, the grind, it's a lot. It takes a lot on you. I mean, we rehearse every day. There's not a day off, and then we perform 3 to 4 days a week. And so 6 months, I'm 29. I felt like I got enough out of it, and I was just ready. Maybe had I been 19, I probably would have just continued on, but I just knew I was ready. But I also too, just thinking just long term. That I mean, I'm a planner. I'm thinking of my both near term and long term future, and just knew that yeah, I wanted to be able to provide and work in a job that can be I'm a scientist, natural scientist, working PhD, and but you can do both. You can do both, and I got to do that, and I'm still somewhat involved in doing some extracurricular activities. Um, yeah, I have an Instagram, Seth Steele one, and doing some dancing there, and but yeah, I mean, you have to decide. But I think it's possible to do both. That you don't have to choose one or the other. You can do both.
Right. Okay. Last submitted question. It's also back to your dancing, and the question is, how has the physical coordination required of a dancer enhanced your mental acuity?
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely predict that at some point, like ballet is going to be a sport at the Olympics. I definitely predict that. If you ever seen ballerinas, they are athletes. They are just some of the most strongest. They have muscle in their toes. I mean, it is just amazing. And so when at Cerritos College, I don't think Bernie is there anymore, but for a while there, I was taking Bernie's ballet class mainly for the stretching, just because the stretching was like a yoga class at the bar. It just you work every muscle, breathing, but that that coordination and being able to coordinate your mind with your body and to memorize the different uh, pieces, it really helped translate into my studying, my profession. It just, yeah, because I was able to work both sides of the brain. I mean, we have this huge brain that we're really only tapping into just a small piece of it. But if you can just also exercise some of that right side, it really just helps balance it out and complements both.
For sure. Cool. Okay. I got one last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. The question is basically, what's next? I mean, you've done a lot already, but you have a lot of life still left ahead of you. And so, what to you is the rest of your future look like? Where do you see the plan of your life kind of going from here?
Yeah, thanks, Prabal. So yeah, next, I definitely see my plan is within, say, 10 to 15 years, my final job, I want to be a professor at a college. Got the PhD already under my belt, a few publications, but I want to be able to work in industry 10 to 15 years to be able to teach, not just from the books, but from experience to my students. And I've already started to lay the foundation for that. I teach part-time as an adjunct instructor at USC in their Sol Price School of Public Policy. I teach once a semester. I'm now on my third year of teaching. They continue to invite me back, so that's going well. But that's helping me just kind of keep one foot in academia, but that's in the long term, 10 to 15 years. And in the near term, yeah, to just continue working right now in the private sector and doing a lot of work, a lot of fun work, and challenging myself. But also too to get a little bit back into dancing. When I moved back to California right before COVID, I wanted to get back into dancing and folklorico, but then COVID hit, and so like all of us, we're trying to now adapt. And folks maybe taking yoga on Zoom, and I'm trying that as well. But yeah, I want to be able to find what is that next dancing path that I can take while I can still work full time.
Got it. Excellent. Well, Seth, this was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm sure as people, not only just the people who are with us today, but as people listen to this, in the weeks ahead, they'll certainly find inspiration from what you've done. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I surely enjoyed hearing your story. So much appreciated. So thank you, Seth.
Yeah, thank you, Parma. I really enjoyed this conversation and the line of questioning. Thank you. Yeah,
Sure.
you didn't put me on the spot or anything. Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Excellent. Matthew, I want to pass it off to you now to kind of not just put a bow on this episode, but also let us know what's coming up in the next couple weeks.
Thank you, Parimal, and Seth. Thank you very much once again. You have a fantastic story, and we really appreciate you taking your time to share that with us and share your journey from Cerritos College student to transportation planner. It's fantastic, and thank you once again, and thank you to everybody for being here tonight. I know that you have a lot of choices on what to do with your time, and we really appreciate the fact that you spent some time with us this evening. I want to go ahead and share my screen because I'm really excited and want to talk to you guys and show you what's up next later this month. Now, let's see here.
And while you do that, let me just give a special shout out. I see Mary C is on the line. I believe that's my mom. I invited her to this. So hello,
Great.
Mom. Thanks for joining. She's also a Cerritos alumni. So maybe one day you can hear her journey.
Excellent. Excellent. Welcome. Welcome, Mary. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about our next event. We have we do 2 Zoom series a month, Alumni Journeys and Alumni Conversations. And our Alumni Conversations event on September 30th is going to be with Al Rivas. He is the Executive Director of Worldwide Technical Operations at Paramount Pictures. And he's going to be talking about his career in the film business. And he has worked on a lot of interesting films: Titanic, Strange Days, Ghosts of the Abyss, True Lies. And his job at Paramount is to basically take the physical media and transport it to digital. So what you see on iTunes and streaming platforms is what Seth and his team at Paramount does. And so we're really excited to welcome him next Thursday at 7 p.m. And you can register for that event at cerritos.edu/alumni. And with that, thank you, everybody, once again for being here tonight. We appreciate you and appreciate your time. And Seth, thank you. And Parimal, thank you. And have a great evening, everyone.
You too. Thanks, Matthew.
Take care,
Go Falcons.
Take care. Yes, absolutely. Go